Thank you very much. Hey, I appreciate everybody coming tonight. I'm going to share my screen here. One thing I want to ask, so the stuff I'm presenting here is really stuff that you should be doing before you get into a partnership. But it sounds like maybe Chris and Dawn have you guys already started your partnership, or are you still at the beginning of it?
Informally, not on legal paper.
Okay, perfect. And has anybody else already started their partnership and moved forward with a business with a partner, or not? Sounds like everybody might be at the very beginning then, haven't chosen a partner yet. That's perfect.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've talked to some people, but I haven't started a real partnership. We've talked about it, and I'm really standing back to make sure it's the right thing to do.
perfect. Okay, that's great. That's where everybody should be right now, is the best way to start. Okay, so what you're going to learn here today are the most common types of partner relationships. You're going to learn some of the existing or how to evaluate some of the existing and potentially negative partner dynamics, of what to assess in yourself and in your potential partner, why it's important to know these things about your potential partner, and then I'm going to share with you some assessment tools that are used all over the world, and are some of the most common tools used for helping people discover themselves and learn about others. All right, so here are some of the most common types of partner relationships. And when I say partner relationships, I'm not talking about legal entities like LLP or LLC or anything like that. I'm talking actual person-to-person relationships. And the most common business partnerships are either family, spouses, friends, or acquaintances. I kind of put everybody into acquaintances. So if you're like, if you are military buddies, or you're new friends, or you went to business school or something with somebody, I would just put that in acquaintances. So can we, in the chat, if everybody knows how to do the chat, I'd like for you to type in there what type of partner relationship you're thinking of going into business with right now. So these people you might already be thinking of going into business. If they're family, type FAM. If they're spouse, type S. If they're friends, type F. And if they're acquaintances, type A. And each of these has like different dynamics. So it's very important you understand what the dynamic is of this relationship, so that you can kind of get a sense of what maybe some of the stresses will be, and what some of the lockups might be when you guys have disagreements or you have stressful times. All right, so let me check this out real quick. I just want to check out the chat. Okay, so acquaintance. Oh, okay, spouse and friend. Okay, that's Ramita. And acquaintance. Wow, more acquaintances than expected. Okay. All right, awesome. Let me see. How do I get to the next? There we go. Okay, so let's just talk about what some of these dynamics are that you need to be aware of when you are, thinking about who you're going to be a partner with. And so family, of course, we don't have, it looks like only one person may be considering potential family here, but the things you really have to be aware of are in a family, like sometimes there might be a parent or a child who's always the dominant personality. So if you're going into business with a parent and you have the parent that's kind of like, hey, what I say goes and that's it, well, you better expect that to be the case in the business and in the partnership. Or the best thing is to address that at the outset and talk about what these dynamics might be and find out whether or not that person is willing to change the dynamic, along with you to make it more of a business partnership. You might have a child that might have too much respect for a parent and never argue against them, which means who's gonna run the business? That would be the parent, or it might be vice versa. It could be the parent who has too much respect and doesn't want to argue against the child, and so you don't really end up with a partnership. You end up with one person at the helm, kind of running everything. And again, maybe that's not bad either. But if you want to have your own autonomy and your own respect, then it might be a source of tension for you. Another common one is siblings who always see the other sibling as inferior. This is a real common one and a real problem in family dynamics, and that also carries over into business relationships. Or you could have something like cousins whose parents don't like each other, and that could cause tension in your relationship. For spouses, we had somebody who is thinking of going into business with a spouse. This is really where I come from. My wife and I owned a party rental company for 10 years. And 5 years into that, we bought a candy and ice cream shop. So, that's kind of like my biggest experience with business partnerships. And so when you get into spouses, right, you might have a dominant personality in the marriage. That's very likely to carry over into the business. You might have a spouse that doesn't respect roles or expertise. So, say somebody, one spouse knows marketing really well, and the other spouse doesn't know anything about marketing. Well, if the spouse who knows marketing is making marketing suggestions and the spouse who doesn't know marketing is turning them down and saying, no, I don't want that to happen, that's a source of tension. That's a problem. And that's one spouse not respecting the roles or the expertise of the other. Or you could have in-laws that negatively affect the business because maybe they're nosy or maybe they're outspoken and they're kind of chirping in your spouse's ear and your spouse is reacting to that. With friends, sometimes we know each other too well. We know each other's flaws and secrets, and that could affect the way the amount of respect that we carry for our business partner, or could make us feel a certain way about the outcome of a friend who now has to go into, Frank the Tank, who, used to drink a lot and run down the street shirtless. Now we have to try to respect the fact that he's going to go into a business meeting and try to win a deal. Friends might be too comfortable or not comfortable enough holding each other accountable. This is a problem. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to lose the friendship. And so they just kind of let things slide by. They let mistakes or, they let poor decisions kind of slide by for the sake of sharing the friendship, and the business suffers. Or your friends might be influenced by their spouse's reactions to circumstances. So acquaintances, we have a lot of people who are thinking of going in business with acquaintances. So some of the dynamics there are that you don't know much about each other. Certainly don't know, any of your flaws or secrets or anything. You don't know them as well as friends. You don't know them as well as family. Sometimes that can be a good thing because maybe now you're starting off on more equal footing, because you're not prejudging each other. You don't have some kind of negative history that you could easily pull into arguments. So it could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing because they could have secrets that could be detrimental. I mean, maybe they're hiding the fact that they're an addict or that they have a criminal record, or some other kind of crazy thing. And then we might have a tendency to kind of brush off red flags with an acquaintance, giving them the benefit of the doubt. We might not be comfortable accusing them of something negative. And so we just don't say anything at all. Or we might not be comfortable confronting them because we're not sure how they would react. So these are some of the dynamics. There's obviously a ton of others, but just when you're thinking of that person try to think of what the existing dynamic is with that person and how it might be a problem or a benefit in the business relationship. And these are when you want to bring these dynamics up to your potential partner, it's a conversation you have to have, right? This could be your very first difficult conversation with this potential business partner. And in business, you're going to have a lot of difficult conversations. So if you can't have this difficult conversation with them, how likely is it that you're going to be able to have a difficult conversation with them about finances when you're in business, or about, how to grow the business, or about ways that you might be hurting the business or that they might be hurting the business, right? You have to become comfortable having difficult conversations. And this is your first opportunity to see how well you handle a difficult conversation and how well they handle a difficult conversation. So if you got a dynamic that you think could hurt the business, this is the time to bring it up before you start. And then it's an opportunity to see, can you guys talk about a problem and then agree about how to handle that dynamic, and how to adjust your reactions in the moment in order to respect each other and respect the business. Okay, so aside from understanding the dynamic, the next thing to do is to understand each other. Understand yourself first, and understand yourself really well, and use assessments to understand yourself and what your strengths and weaknesses are, how you react to the world, how you react to problems, and to also understand how your potential partner reacts to the world, how they react to problems, what does it seem like their decision-making process might be, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and how does it seem like the two of you or the three of you or more might end up meshing, right? It's kind of like ultimately what you're doing is you're kind of laying all the pieces of the puzzle out on the table. You want to present all the important aspects of your personalities and your communication styles, your decision making, and share those things with each other and have long conversations about these things so that you can really understand each other well. And if the puzzle pieces seem to fit really good together, you got a good shot at making a partnership work. If the puzzles don't fit so well, then there's probably a good chance that the partnership is not going to work, and it's time to find a different partner. So you can put the pieces of the puzzle together more easily and make a more beautiful picture. So have any of you taken personality assessments or anything like that with any of your potential partners?
Yeah. The daughter and I have taken our DISC assessment together.
Perfect. Okay. So share a little bit about that. So what does that say about you guys and how your personalities might mesh?
Well, I need to pull it up right now because we did it a little while ago.
All right. Pull it up and then we'll talk about it at the end of the presentation.
Cool.
Awesome. So I'm totally curious to hear about it. So the DISC assessment, that's one of the assessments that I'm suggesting in this presentation here. The DISC assessment is a personality type assessment. And it's going to, when the two of you, when you and your other partner take this DISC assessment, if you haven't done this before, it's a good eye opener to the type of personality that you have, how you interact with others, or how you present yourself to the world. And this is going to tell you, are one of you dominant and one of you passive, or are both of you dominant or both of you passive? Somebody an introvert or extrovert? Is somebody a details person versus a big picture person? And you want to know these things because if you're too many of the same if you share too many personality types, then that means you have big weaknesses with your partnership somewhere, and you're too strong together in the other areas, and this could end up creating, you know, a lot of arguments between you, because it also could create great harmony between you. It really kind of depends on the other aspects of your personality. But it's great to be aware of these things and to know your partner in this way. Now, I thought this was a big joke when I first was introduced to it. You know, our leadership coach was like, okay, so you're gonna know your personality type. Another thing we did was emotional, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And now you guys are going to be able to communicate better at work. You're going to understand why people respond the way they do, or why they might, you know, take the time they take to make decisions, that kind of thing. I'm a fairly quick decision maker, not real quick, but fairly quick. When it comes to anything creative, you know, it's a strength of mine, right? So I can come up with creative stuff all the time. And I couldn't understand why the graphic designer I worked with wasn't the same way as me. And then we took these assessments, and it all clicked one day. And I was like, wow, this stuff really does work. This is pretty incredible. So aside from personality type, another thing to assess are your strengths and weaknesses. This is very important, because like I said, you don't want to share too many of the same strengths. You really want a partner, ideally, who has some level of shared strengths with you, but then also has great strength where you might have weakness, right? And so this is part of the puzzle pieces that I'm talking about. You know, if you are an optimist, it might be helpful to have somebody who's a little more of a pessimist, right? So good balance there. Of course, too much optimism and too much pessimism can be a problem, but we're kind of looking for balances here, right? If you know, you're really creative, and they're also really creative, that could be incredible. But if you're really creative and they're not so creative, well, you know, you might have to understand that, so that when you're presenting something creative, it might take them a little bit longer to kind of get it. It might take more time for it to click with them. You know, a big thing is discipline versus not disciplined, right? I've talked to a bunch of people who are like, oh man, my business partner is so lazy, like he doesn't want to do anything. You know, but I'm a go-getter. I'm a total go-getter. And that creates obviously a huge problem in a business relationship. It's too unbalanced. So ultimately, with your strengths and weaknesses, you're looking for some balance there. And then another assessment that's great is emotional intelligence, or they call it emotional quotient. And this is going to give you a ton of insight into how each of you respond to situations. And, you know, we're emotional creatures, right? So this is kind of the base of what we do. You know, we react to the world in an emotional way. And so understanding yourself with this kind of depth that an emotional intelligence assessment can give you, and understanding your partner in this way, can really help communication. You know, how do you each react to different challenges or confrontations? Also, what is each of your level of self-awareness? You know, are you aware of how you react to situations? Are you aware of what your preferences are when it comes to working on a disagreement? You know, if one of you really wants to solve a problem immediately before you can move on, but the other one needs time away, needs to step back and think about it a little bit longer, you know, now you have a challenge in how you're going to get past certain arguments or disagreements, because one of you wants to do it quickly and the other one wants more time to think about it. But when you know this about each other, Now, the person who wants to get over things quickly has the opportunity to say, okay, I understand that you need some time. Let me give you some time, right? The person who needs time might have to compromise by saying, okay, I need time away, but we have a problem to solve, so I can't just go into a shell now for days. I got to figure out how I can process this a little bit faster so that, we can move past this and my partner can do what they do best, that kind of thing. I'm really summarizing this stuff. You know that, Dr. Bonnie. I'm really summarizing, but if you get a professional like Dr. Bonnie helping you with these things.
No, you're doing great. I'm dying to hear how you and your wife, like, which one are you and which one is she? So I'm paying rapt attention.
Okay, good. Okay, so another thing we're going to assess is our decision-making ability, right? So what we're talking about so far is we've got someone we think we want to be a partner with. We got to understand, well, what's their personality, right? We have to understand what's their emotional intelligence? How do they respond to things? We need to understand what are their strengths and weaknesses, and what are my strengths and weaknesses? And now we get to the point of decision making, right? What is our ability to make decisions, and how do we make decisions? Are we impulsive? Does one of us suffer paralysis, by analysis? Is one of us fear-based versus fact-based as a decision maker? This kind of assessment helps you understand those things. Like I said before, quick decision maker, slow decision maker. Somebody might be more comfortable with the risk, so they can make decisions faster. Somebody else might not be so comfortable with risk, and they want to think about the decisions longer. They want to try to think about more angles to approach things with, or think about what other possible consequences there might be. They might not want to rush to a decision. And in business, right, you have to make a ton of decisions. It's really what business is all about. It's decision after decision. So understanding how each of you makes decisions gives you the opportunity to talk about how you're going to make future decisions. And I talk here about designing your decision-making process, right? There are things you can do, like you can create a decision-making plan, or decision-making matrix, or decision-making flow chart, something like that, right? Where you sit down and you say, okay, here are decisions that are not critical to that are not detrimental, that are not incredibly detrimental, right? That here are some decisions that can be made quickly. We don't really need to think about them a whole lot. If we get them wrong, it's not a big deal. We can change on a dime. Let's establish those things. And then you can make another list of decisions that say, all right, these are critical decisions, right? If we get these wrong, it kills the company. So these are decisions that we must not make quickly. We have to take time to think these through, and then arrange in between, right? And then that way you have already pre-planned how to attack certain decisions and what that's going to look like for you as a partnership. And then you're not surprised by it when the time comes. And then lastly, you want to assess goals, lifestyle, and legacy, right? So what do each of you want out of the business? Maybe one of you wants, you want to pass the business on to your children, but maybe the other partner wants to sell the business. One of you might want time with your family, so you're not planning on working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. But maybe the other one of you is a workaholic and wants to work 80 hours a week. You have to establish these things with each other and understand what the other person wants. And if the rest of the puzzle pieces come together, then this is another part you have to figure out. Do we mesh on this? Is this going to be okay? And you don't have to be on the same page with these things. I'm sorry, you don't have to want the same things here, but you do have to be on the same page and understand. So, because if you're the workaholic working 80 hours a week, but your partner is not working at 10 o'clock at night, you need to understand they're not working because they're making time for family. That's important to them too. Business is important, but their family time is important too, and I respect that. To me, I don't have kids or whatever, so I can be a workaholic. I can work until 11 o'clock at night. That's fine, right? It's all about understanding your partner and coming to an agreement and being good with it. And I basically just kind of said this part of it, but so now you do all the assessments. You've talked about the dynamics. You've talked all that over, and you've shared all these things with your business partner. Now you know all that stuff. So what? Well, now it's time for you guys to buy into what the assessments say and what you've agreed upon regarding your dynamics, and let that stuff define your rules of engagement in the business as a business partnership. When you do that, then you can respect each other's roles and responsibilities. One of the big things, like I mentioned before, somebody knows something about marketing and they have a lot of experience there, they should be making the marketing decisions. And the partner that doesn't know marketing should respect the fact that their partner is really the expert in marketing. And then, same with any other role, right? Whoever has the strength in those things should be the one who's ultimately, has the decision on those things. And those roles and boundaries should be respected. And then if you ever run into trouble, refer back to these assessment results. I can tell you from personal experience, that does help to go back and remind yourself, all right, what is it about this person that causes them to want to make these decisions? Then you see it in an assessment, and it's a reminder. Okay, great. All right, now I should be responding in this way, or it's best if I do this, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so last thing is, what are some of the tools that you can use? So Dawn and Chris already brought up the DISC assessment. That's a great one. Or the Myers-Briggs type assessment. And those are for personality type. There's a bunch of these, by the way, for all this stuff. These are just a couple that I'm suggesting. If you go on in Google, you can find a ton of them. For strengths and weaknesses, there's something called the Clifton Strengths by an organization called Gallup. You might have heard of the Gallup poll. Or you could buy the book Strengths Finder 2.0. And in the back of that book, you get a code that allows you to go onto the Gallup website and log into a strength assessment and take it there. For emotional intelligence, there's the emotional quotient, the EQI 2.0. That's more of like an individual emotional intelligence assessment. If you really want to dig down and you really want to get the real deal, the EQ 360, that also includes other people's responses to the assessment questions about you. So you get other people's viewpoints about how you react to situations. Highly, highly valuable. And then for decision making, you could do a real simple, quick decision making assessment for yourself at adaform.com. That's free. And then you can find others as well. And then also, like, just a reminder, create that decision plan, that decision matrix.